Minerals provide all the structure in the universe. You can live without vitamins for weeks, but without minerals, we'd be dead in a few hours. All of nature uses the same ratio of minerals. Here's why high amounts of magnesium causes a laxative effect. Minerals from plants are far more digestible. If you put a huge amount of magnesium in your body daily, here's what happens to your bones. Minerals do their job inside the cell. Here's why salt-based electrolytes are ineffective. As we age, here's how our mineral needs change. Here's how minerals impact your metabolic health.
Hello, Carolyn. Thank you for joining me today. I've been looking forward to our conversation for quite some time. It's hard to imagine. If you told me this 20 years ago, I would have thought you were crazy, but to get excited to talk about minerals, something so foundational in health, something that is very often overlooked or maybe not accounted for in the healing process, however, very essential. So I'm super stoked. I know we've been trying to coordinate this conversation for quite some time, and I'm very honored that the schedules and the calendars align for us to be able to do this. So thank you for being here today.
I am so pleased to be here with you, Sachin. Anytime I get to spend with you is golden.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We've known each other for many years, and it's been wonderful to see what you've been doing to bring this message to the world. And I'm certainly excited to share it with our community and our audience as well. The topic of minerals, I feel like is something that is gaining more and more attention, partly thanks to you and the messaging that you're putting out there. But why don't we start with what is a mineral? Maybe that's a good place for us to start and create that working definition for people.
I love to start there. So, here's the interesting thing. All structure in the world is minerals. If you're sitting on a chair right now, the chair is minerals. The building is minerals. The floor is minerals. In fact, the entire planet is made of minerals. All the structure in your body, in my body, is minerals. If we took all the water out of our bodies, we'd be little piles of minerals. So minerals are the absolute foundation of structure in the universe. So that's the first thing. And then and that includes 70 plus minerals that we've identified thus far. Now, in the human body, they've identified, depending on who you speak with, between 17 and 22 minerals that you absolutely need to have in your body for optimal function. Now, many of those minerals people have heard of, like magnesium or calcium, potassium, these things we've heard of in our electrolyte mixes. Or zinc. A lot of people have heard of zinc because of the pandemic, and it helps with immunity. And then, of course, and chromium, there's some that people have heard of, but there's a lot of minerals that are absolutely necessary in the body that many people have never heard of, like molybdenum, vanadium, boron. These are, so they're foundational to metabolic health, so the operation of energy generation in your body. They also are cofactors for every single biosynthesis process in your body requires a mineral or multiple minerals. So they are the absolute foundation for the health of your system. You can live without vitamins for quite a long time. You might get scurvy, or you might get, some diseases, but you can live without them. But without minerals, you will expire in a few hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Thank you. I'm curious, what is your favorite mineral? If you had to choose one, is there one? I know zinc and magnesium are quite popular and they're involved in hundreds of metabolic processes, but is there one that you particularly like?
Well, so it's really great that you asked that question, but here's the thing, because I know that minerals don't work alone. It's like saying, do you have a favorite child? You might have one that you resonate more with, but you love them all, and your family system is your family system, and it all works together, and everybody, plays their part in their role. So, the the reason I'm saying I don't want to answer that question is because it's actually it's specific to what I'm talking about, which is, lots of people love magnesium and it's become the big, cure-all. Take magnesium and you'll sleep better, and take magnesium and you'll eliminate better, different things like that. But the problem is, because minerals don't work alone, you're actually creating imbalance in your body, because mineral balance between different minerals is as important as the level of a certain mineral that you have in your body.
Yeah, very well said. Because I think that, and not that it was a trick question, but I think a lot of people probably have a favorite mineral of theirs without realizing it, but they may not realize that they're throwing everything else out of balance, or they might be throwing other minerals out of balance. And because of that, they may not be achieving the health outcome that they desire. And it's the way things work synergistically in the universe and in nature, that also works synergistically, or that formula of synergy also works in our body as well. So we have to make sure we're getting everything in the right ratio, in the right amount. I think is a good way to look at it. Would that be
Yeah,
accurate?
absolutely. And, if you think about your body as a natural ecosystem, where in nature, when we have concentrations of minerals, plants don't grow.
Hmm.
So the way ecosystems thrive is with small, balanced ratios of lots of nutrients and minerals provided incrementally over time. Large concentrations of any particular element are not considered um, a, a thriving environment for cellular life.
Are there particular minerals, that we're finding are being more and more depleted from the soil or from our food sources?
I would actually say they're all depleted. So a 2022 study done by National Institutes of Health showed that 97% of Americans have only 40% of the minerals in their body that they need for optimal function. Now that means across all of those 17 to 22 minerals. Now, while clearly, because you need a lot of magnesium and potassium and calcium and things like that, if you're low in those, it's going to have a much stronger impact on your system in the short term. The overall balance and ratios of all the minerals are also very important. So, and the reason I keep leading us into this more ecosystem-based thinking about minerals is that we have to start thinking about how we're going to get the minerals back into our body. And if we start thinking about single minerals, we're going to miss a boat.
Yeah, I hear you. Like I know a big thing that a lot of people don't think about is where their minerals come from, right? Do they come from rocks? Do they come from shells or bone, or do they come from plants or their food sources? I know you're a big fan of plant-based minerals. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about plant-based minerals and why they're different than traditional minerals.
Yeah. Well, first of all, plant-based minerals aren't necessarily like taking garden vegetables and grinding them up and drying them, and then calling that plant-based minerals. That is not what plant-based minerals are. Plant-based minerals are they're two substances, and they're called humic and fulvic. They're really molecules. And what they come from decomposing freshwater plants. And so the way I like to really help people to understand what these are is every cell on Earth requires minerals to function, and not just one or two, but a whole full spectrum of minerals. Because inside your cell, you have these things called the mitochondria, and these mitochondria are the energy generating units in your body. They generate almost all of the energy in your body. And the way that they do that is with cofactors. They're called cofactors, and one of them is a mineral and the other is an amino acid. Now, it's not just one mineral and one amino acid, because it goes through a whole process, and at every stage of that process, a different mineral and amino acid are required. So that's why we don't think, well, we can just put a whole bunch of magnesium in our system and have it and expect it to have an effect, because that's only one step in the process of that mitochondria generating energy. So, so energy generation happens in the cell. And guess what? Because Mother Nature knew that we had to get minerals into all cells in the entire, on all across the earth. We needed to have a method for getting those minerals into the cells. And so rather than trying to find a little magnesium over here and some chromium over there and some zinc over here and some copper over here and some vanadium over here, instead it pre-formulated a molecule with the exact ratios that your body utilizes.
Hmm.
And it did that by creating a whole process of microbial degradation, like this process using microbes that would break down the plants, because all the structure in those plants is minerals, and it broke them down, and then it ended up with these two molecules. And those molecules are what, if you look outside your window, all of the plants, they're all utilizing fulvic and humic, because these mycelium, these are like this network underneath the soil that are delivering packets of nutrients to the roots of plants. They're delivering humic and fulvic.
Hmm.
Those are the molecules that are being delivered.
It's like it's like actual intelligence versus artificial intelligence, right? It's this wisdom of billions of years of evolution or intervention that's created these perfect molecules, and then we get to utilize them right in their original format. So tell me the difference. I think you did, but I just want you to unpack a little bit more the difference between taking humic or fulvic acid supplementally versus taking a capsule that has just the individually listed
Yeah.
minerals on it.
Yeah. So I like to describe it in this way. If you think about your gut microbiome, and what we know about the gut now is that inside your gut, there are all these microflora and microbes and beneficial bacteria, and there's all these, it's plant life and it's animal life in there. And first of all of those use the same ratios of minerals that your body needs. They need the same ratios. So if you think about your gut like a forest, and you think about when a forest is thriving, there's all these plants that are growing, and there's lots of nutrients in the soil, and there's water, and there's air coming through bringing nutrients as well. And there's plants that are dying and decomposing, giving their nutrients back to the soil. And it's an incredibly diverse and balanced and lush environment. Now, if you took a wheelbarrow of magnesium and you threw it on the floor of that forest, the plants in that area would not thrive. They would actually go, oh, this is a concentration. They would shrivel. In some cases, they'd burn. They would not be happy. So when we use single minerals, that's one of the challenges that happens, is you're requiring your body to deal with a concentration. And because your body is an ecosystem, much like a forest, it's actually not designed to do that. So as an example, people use magnesium for elimination, and guess why it works? Because the body says, I've got a concentration, I've got too much, we need to get rid of it really quickly.
Mm.
And so
So
it makes you
it, al-
eliminate.
it almost acts like a toxin in that case.
Correct. Well, I mean, a concentration, you know, anything in, like zinc, take zinc as an example. Zinc in the right ratios supports your immune system. But during the pandemic, lots of people took lots of zinc. Now they have high levels of zinc. And guess what? Zinc is a heavy metal.
Hmm.
See? So you don't want too much zinc in your system. Your body works. I mean, if you go out and to your garden and you just pour a ton of water on it, what happens? It'll die if you put too much water on, you know. I always actually suggest people take well, maybe their salt-based electrolyte packet, or maybe their capsule of whatever minerals they're taking, and feed it to a house plant that they don't like very much, for a week, and watch what happens. You see, and you quickly see the difference. So that's, first of all, is that you're creating a concentration in an ecosystem environment that actually thrives in small incremental changes over time. So that's the first piece. The other piece is that when you take a capsule of let's say calcium that's made of ground up bone and you put it into your gut, even though it's a powder, it looks like it's really small. Your body actually only digests a very small amount of it. It's your gut is, I mean, we know if we get a bone in our mouth, we spit it out because our digestive tract doesn't break those things down very well. And it's even less so for rock, stone-based kinds of minerals. So what you want to have, and I mean, the beautiful thing about the plant-based minerals is guess what? They come from plants. Your digestive tract knows exactly how to digest those. So they're much more digestible. That's the first stage. The second thing is that your cells recognize humic and fulvic as beneficial substances. So the way that cells work is they have a lining, and they're like passages that open up, like opening a door. And I say it's kind of like having a peephole in your front door, and you can look through and see who's out there, So it's if the cell goes, oh, that's magnesium, let's open the door and let it in because we know we need magnesium. But now the beautiful thing about the fulvic molecule is it's very small, much smaller than a cell. Your cell recognizes it. Any channel, any door that opens, any window, any channel, and it goes straight through into the cell. Now, the cool thing is it's not just carrying one magnesium molecule, it's carrying 60 times its molecular weight of minerals and it could carry amino acids. And it's like having a guy with a backpack filled with all the good stuff that comes in the door and dumps it out inside, or like on your table. Now you've got all the stuff you need for the day.
What a beautiful analogy. And it just, helps me understand better how amazing our bodies are and how amazing nature is. And really, this myopic approach that, I've taken, I'm guilty of that too, where we're just like, okay, a little bit must be, if a little bit's good for you, a lot must be great for you. And yes,
Right.
we can have a therapeutic effect from something like giving somebody magnesium citrate, right?
Mhm.
To help them have a bowel movement, but
Mhm.
are we really helping that person?
Right.
Are we helping them remineralize, which I think should be the goal? And if we are trying to help them remineralize, then from what I'm understanding is we need to do it so the minerals are coming in the right ratio, so that we're not creating a toxic effect, or we're not throwing the ratios of different minerals off and creating
Yes.
further imbalances. Because I think it's, you know a lot of, like you said, during COVID, a lot of people were guilty of taking tons of zinc, right? Or
Mhm.
they could be taking a ton of something else, but that's just not how nature works. And
Exactly.
as you indicated, in fact, if we were to dump a whole bunch of a single mineral in one spot, we would actually damage the ecosystem instead of supporting the ecosystem. And if we just look at our bodies through that lens, then it changes how we intervene. And
Mhm.
instead of creating imbalance, we can create more balance. Uh,
Yeah, and here we are trying to do something good for our body because we're taking these minerals or these electrolytes and things, thinking we're helping. But a really good example of this is some trainers of elite triathletes who came to me in the aging quadrant, and they said, we've got a problem because our athletes are experiencing osteopenia and osteoporosis. And I said, yeah, because here's what happens if you put a huge amount of magnesium, potassium in your gut daily for a long period of time, your body has to balance that with phosphorus and calcium. And where does it get that? From your bones and teeth. So over a long period of time, they actually created the situation where the body was stealing from the bones to balance this continual amount of magnesium and potassium. So, I talk to a lot of people about, aging women in particular, as our hormonal shifts happen and we're really focused on bone health, just taking calcium alone it's not going to do it. And, the thing I want to really stress is remember that minerals do their job, most minerals do their job inside the cells. So you can put all the minerals you want in your mouth, and only a very small amount gets digested A smaller amount gets absorbed into your bloodstream, and a much smaller amount gets actually assimilated into the cell. So really you want to provide that delivery tool. And that's the beautiful thing about Fulvic. It doesn't only provide all the minerals you need, but it provides that delivery system for the minerals directly into your cells. And what's even cooler is because it's so small, and if you're taking Fulvic that has no flavoring, it actually absorbs through any tissue that it touches. So if I drink my, this has fulvic and humic in it, but if I drink this, it starts absorbing through the lining of my mouth, my throat, my esophagus. By the time it hits my stomach, it's already being utilized. Some of the mineral content's being utilized. So for people with real gut problems, people with digestive issues, Crohn's, IBS, different problems, and struggle with absorption of nutrients, this is a fantastic way to start that basic up-leveling of everything, of energy generation throughout the body. It's very exciting, I
Yeah.
think.
No, I do too, right? It just, there's so much potential because I think most people take their minerals wrong. And if they haven't noticed the difference or an improvement or a benefit, it could be because it's not structured correctly, or the delivery method isn't quite right, or the ratios aren't quite right.
Yeah,
And this gives everyone who's listening to this who isn't taking a humic or fulvic acid based mineral supplement or support product an opportunity for more healing to take place. So I don't think we have to sell people on the minerals, but we may have to, educate them and train them on the form those minerals show up in the body so that they can be best utilized. And I love what you said, that they only work in the cell. So if we can't get it into the cell, it doesn't really do the job that it's supposed to do. And I also love that we can get sublingual or, absorption immediately taking place versus having to rely on other factors. And I know sometimes like stomach acid and things like that can impact our absorption of minerals, but it sounds like if we can get it right into our system, in our mouth and through the esophagus, then in a humic and fulvic acid format, then the absorption rate is going to be much higher.
exactly. And, you know, one of the things that people, there's a lot of people who are doing the salt-based electrolytes, and I'm not a proponent of those at all. And I think that over time, and I talk with lots of athletes who have used a lot of these, they still feel dehydrated, they still feel depleted, and they struggle with gut health. They've got lots of bowel issues, cramping, all sorts of different gut problems. And I get them shifted over to using Fulvic as their main electrolyte replenisher, and they never go back because they notice they're so depleted, they notice the difference immediately. And then when they're able to do it, we work with a guy who's a tennis pro. And in the middle of August, he's doing a tennis tournament in Tennessee. It's incredibly hot and sweaty, and he's the only one coming off the court without cramping. And there are all the other people are going like, "What are you doing? Tell us what are you doing?" And he actually uses the spray because fulvic, again, it's so small that you can spray it on your skin and it absorbs right through the skin into the muscles. So if you have a sore arm from playing tennis, you just spray it on. You just keep spraying it on throughout the day and you're good.
Wow. I
Yeah.
use that spray myself, and I've seen you spray it like on your skin, like on your face as well. Does it have and I know you said that minerals provide us with structure. So tell me a little bit more, if, because I know there's a big movement these days. Everyone wants to look good. They want to look young or younger than
Yeah.
they are,
Yeah.
age backwards. How do minerals affect the aging process or slow down the aging process?
Well, if you just think about your body and you think about all the energy generation that happens in your cells, as you get older, your mitochondrial function, so the number of mitochondria that you have in your body that are active becomes less. So what that means is you need to provide more minerals to the active mitochondria to keep the energy generation in your body high. Now, The other I want to talk about specifically with skin, because one of the big things about skin and keeping it healthy, because your skin is one of the first places that gets barraged with all the environmental pollutants and, all the lead and everything that's hitting your face, okay? And you're breathing it into your sinuses. So the other part of fulvic that is so cool, so we talked about its delivery capacity. It brings minerals into the cell, so increases energy generation because it's providing fuel to the campfire. But the other thing that it does is once it's dropped off its bolus of minerals and nutrients, now it travels around in the cell and it gathers biowaste, toxins, heavy metals, nanoplastics, viral detritus, just general waste products. And now it carries them out of the cell. Again, any channel that opens, it carries. The guy with the backpack walked around your room. He picked up the trash, all the stuff you don't need, put it in his backpack, and now he's carrying it out of your cell.
A
And then
welcome guest.
what?
A welcome guest.
Yes, a welcome guest, exactly. And then he carries it out, and now he's back in the bloodstream. Now he dumps it out into
Hmm.
the bloodstream. And now Fulvic's partner, the humic molecule, which is a large molecule relative to a cell, hangs out in the bloodstream. I call it Mother Nature's janitor
Hmm.
because it literally is a continuous detoxification tool, just travels through your bloodstream, has an incredible amount of surface area, like a sponge. And it's also incredibly strong. It's a very strong electrolyte molecule, so it's very sticky and it travels through your bloodstream, again, chelating with heavy metals, biowaste, toxins, glyphosate, nanoplastics, things from getting vaccines, graphene oxide, things like that.
Hmm.
It gathers those. At a certain point, the molecule gets so heavy that it precipitates out the way, if you mixed some, dry powder into this glass and let it sit for a while, it would fall to the bottom at a certain point. And that's what happens. The molecule gets heavy, falls out of solution, and it leaves your body through every elimination channel. Your tears, your snot, your sweat, your saliva, your earwax, just sloughing off cells on your skin, the bottoms of your feet, and your urine and feces, of course. But the beautiful thing about it is it will use every channel, so it doesn't require certain detoxification channels to be open, which makes sense in nature. Nature couldn't say, yeah, we're going to have to wait, make sure this channel is open. No, it just had to work
Hmm.
everywhere for all cellular systems.
Wow. This is quite amazing, quite remarkable. And I'm curious, like what inspired you to go down this path?
Yeah. So what happened to me is about 10 years ago, a little bit longer. I was in a corporate career. I wasn't doing this at all. And I was in high tech. And I burned out of that career and I had flatlined adrenals, really bad inflammation in my gut, even after being gluten-free for like 7 years. Couldn't get over all of the bloating and elimination problems. Had really bad inflammation in my mouth with bone loss and in bad gingivitis. I had continual sinus infections that just came every 6 weeks or so. Also, thyroid problems, hormonal problems. I was a mess. And I met my business partner now, who's now my business partner, and he said, maybe these minerals would help you. And he gave me this little cup of minerals, and I drank them, and I was like, oh, those are easy. It wasn't pills. I hate taking pills. And so I took them every day. And after 2 months, I went to my dentist to have my teeth cleaned. I had to have my teeth cleaned every 3 months because I had so many problems. She looked in my mouth and she was like, oh my gosh, what's changed? The pH has totally changed. The tissues don't look red and inflamed anymore. Let's check your pockets. They went around, checked my pockets, and they were markedly, the depth of them was markedly reduced. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, I'm taking these minerals. So then 4 months in, I went to see my naturopath. I had done my adrenal test, a saliva test. When she looked at the results, and we had been working on trying to repair my adrenals for over a year. And the last appointment, she wanted me to take hydrocortisone to do like a jump start, and I hadn't filled the prescription, and they were 1/3 of the way up the chart. And over about 8 or 9 months, Sachin, all of those symptoms that I just described resolved on
Hmm.
their own. No more no doctors, nothing. They just resolved. And as I started feeling better and better, I kept going back to my friend and going, how could this be? Like, what? And he started feeding me these little pieces of information. And because I call myself an under the hood thinker. So I always like to look up under the hood and go, how does that work? And how is that connected? And so I started researching, and I've basically given myself, college degree in microbiology and cellular biology and all sorts of stuff, even soil science and plant decomposition, all sorts of things, because I wanted to understand how replenishment works in the body, why these minerals could have such an incredible effect, and, ultimately, why no one had ever mentioned. I mean, I've spent probably close to $100,000 on my health trying to get well.
Hmm.
No one ever said, maybe you're mineral depleted.
It's not sexy enough.
No. Right, exactly. And truthfully, even if they had said you need to take, here's these 8 pill bottles, would I have continued taking them? And
Right.
that's part of the problem. I spend a lot of time in my research. I actually went to health food stores, and I sat in the mineral aisle, and I talked to people who were like picking up the bottle and going, hmm. And, they had like 6 bottles of pills in there. And I was like, how do you know what to take? They're like, oh, my mother said I need this, my friend said this, my trainer, whatever. But they really had no idea what minerals represent in terms of increasing energy generation or even how they work. No
Hmm.
one knows. I mean, you're a very, revered practitioner in how much study of minerals, in terms of how they work, were you ever given?
Yeah. And I think any study that we've done was really in isolation, right? Not
Yes.
understanding this concept of humic and fulvic acid and this, beautiful ratio and orchestration that nature has done for us, simplified the entire process. And here we are complicating it
Yeah.
and making it less effective when we could just tap into nature's wisdom and put it in a format that a is better absorbed, but then also kind of clears out the waste. So it's like you have the remedy so readily available, but we're looking in all the wrong places for the answer. So I'm loving what I'm hearing. And I remember many years ago, you might be familiar with this company called Drucker Labs.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
so many years ago, I remember the first kind of real multivitamin supplement that I started taking was their product called Intramax.
Exactly.
And that was the first time I ever heard of humic and fulvic acid because they use that in their product. And
Mhm.
since moving to Canada, it's like almost impossible to get that product here. So I've kind of stopped using it. But certainly this inspires me to obviously use your product, but also realize that maybe I was ahead of the curve. I just didn't know what I know now, even after our conversation today, just realizing how much wisdom there is, in the humic and fulvic acid that's available to us.
It's funny because I've just written a book, which I'm really excited is going to come out next spring. But in the research of that, I started really looking at, well, how do we get into this mess with minerals? And, it's how we got into a lot of the mess with modern medicine, which is we had scientists who said, okay, we've got soldiers and high performance athletes who are experiencing, these deep mineral depletions. They're passing out, we need to give them a quick fix. And so they went in their labs and they were like, okay, we're going to figure out all the minerals the body needs and how much they need. And they came out with recommended daily allowances. And
Mm,
you see these on the back of nutritional facts panels and supplement fact panels, how much of a percentage of daily requirement of magnesium this product has, as an example. But the problem is it's ludicrous because how would anyone know how much magnesium you need versus a 75-year-old woman versus a kid versus me or a pregnant woman, do you see it doesn't take into account lifestyle, eating style, activity level, what stage of life you're in, your genetics or your epigenetics. So if, and I know they were trying to do a good thing, but the problem is that they just didn't look at how nature does it. Because guess what? Every cell on Earth, do you know trees and plants, the same ratios that your body uses? It's the same.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't it be, right?
Right. Why wouldn't it be? Exactly.
That's true wisdom, right? Is to just design, all living organisms using, a centralized formula, right? Versus making something unique and different for every single one. Uh, Signs of intelligence, perhaps. Uh,
Yes.
I'm curious, is all humic acid and fulvic acid created equal? Does it matter where it's sourced from?
Yeah.
And if so, where do you source it from?
Yeah. Well, let me actually, I'll give you a quick primer on where it comes from. Most, so these aren't, again, like if you make compost tea for your backyard organic garden, what you're seeing in the brown water is humic and fulvic in the process of being made by plants decomposing. Okay. If you see a pond and the water is brown, that's humic and fulvic. If you see just plants in your compost heap, and if you dig down to the very bottom that's been there for a few years, that's probably very humic based material. However, most products that people are eating or ingesting or even putting on their garden come from ancient decomposed plants. So 65 million years ago, the earth was covered with rainforests. A meteor hit the Yucatan. It killed 75% of all life on the planet in a few hours. And all of those rainforests around the earth died and decomposed. And so they left these deposits of different materials. In the Himalayas, we have shilajit. In the British Isles, there's something called peat. It's kind of a clumpy
Hmm.
soil substance. In the South America, they have terra preta. And in North America, there are some materials called humate and leonardite, and these are black crystalline substances. Now, that base substance is the way that they extract the humic and fulvic molecules out of that base substance is the thing that makes the difference. So if you're looking for things that are called humic and fulvic acid, these products are extracted using hydrochloric acid. It's not a bad thing. Your stomach is full of hydrochloric acid, right? But it tastes bad.
Hmm.
So those aren't great if you're going to drink them as a liquid. But if you were going to take them as a pill, or as a capsule, no problem. Most humic and fulvic acid that is extracted that way is used in agriculture, and all the regen farmers and all of those people are all using humic and fulvic. It's a great way to increase production in your backyard garden is go find some humic and fulvic products to amend your soil. You will not believe what happens with your plants in the spring if you
Hmm.
do that. It's phenomenal. And you can even try it on your house plant. It's fun to watch that. I mean, I've literally had people pour some of our minerals on their house plant and come back like 2 days later and the plant went like that. I mean, it's like 48 hours, 24, 48 hours. It's
I'm gonna
incredible.
tell my wife this because she somehow finds a way to kill all of our houseplants. So she's almost
Oh,
given up. And this could be the hack that brings all our plants back to life and reinstalls her confidence in growing houseplants again.
well, and you have to watch because the other thing is these have a very high pH, so not acidic. And so some plants that like an acidic
Hmm.
kind of soil don't love it. So you have to work with it. But so the other thing you have to realize is these two molecules, the humic and fulvic, they have different properties. And humic has this detox property, and fulvic has that uptake. It does intercellular detox, but it also does enhanced energy generation by bringing more nutrients into the cell. It's nice to have them separated, mainly because for people who have had Lyme's disease, have autoimmune, long COVID, different things that have made their system very sensitive. And there are many more of them. I'm one of them, which is why I always put mine in a big glass of water and drink it over a period of time. If I just took a whole capful or a capsule of humic, I will herx. Maybe not today, but if I did it 3 days in a row. So it's nice to have them separate because the fulvic, no one has ever had any detox reaction with fulvic. So you can just use that to up level the whole energy generation in your body. And then you can start very small with humic, small amounts, slow introduction over time.
So in your products, are those two separate products?
Yeah, so we have two products. One is called Electrolyze. It's the green bottle, and it's the fulvic product. And it's a golden color, tastes like water. Just it's really easy to drink, and it's always like the go-to one that I say start with this. Everyone should start with that because it again, you're just going to feel a difference in your energy within a few days.
Hmm.
But you have to remember what these aren't like taking a big magnesium pill. You're not going to fall asleep or have a bowel movement right immediately. These are slow incremental changes. You're going to start noticing a change in a week and then, you know, over time, which is actually really healthy for your ecosystem. It's going to start to regain balance throughout your system.
Okay. And then when would you introduce the humic acid?
Humic. Yeah, so the Humic, which is our microboost product, and just so people aren't confused, it does have some fulvic in the product, but it's primarily a humic product. So it's primarily the detox tool, the gentle, continuous detox tool.
Now, this might, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Are there any
Mhm.
contraindications like for pregnancy or breastfeeding or anything like that?
There are not. I'll tell you the contraindications I'll tell you are if you are having chemotherapy, your doc will not want you to be taking Humic because it will be removing the toxins that I mean, I hate to say that, but that's true. But the fulvic is fantastic for use during chemotherapy and particularly in between infusions when you're feeling nauseous and all of that because it will keep your system and because these don't break a fast, if you're a faster, you can take these during fasting and it will support all of that autophagy, all of those processes that are happening to clear out your system. The other one that happens if you have hemochromatosis, which is a buildup of iron in your system, people can have a buildup of iron when they take our minerals if they have hemochromatosis. And it seems to be, we've heard about it more and more recently. I have no idea why. But there are some bentonite clay products that you can use in conjunction with the humic minerals that will totally negate that issue. The only, again, I'm just going to say that if you're a sensitive person, you just need to start very slow with the humic. And we have a slow introduction method, we call it. Start with a quarter teaspoon in a cup of water, 8-ounce glass of water, and you drink that over a period of time. You do that for 3 or 4 days. If you have no issues, you add another quarter teaspoon and you just slowly titrate up over a period of time. And this is, what I try to help people think about is I don't care what supplement you're taking, that would be a really good method. Start slow. Give your system a chance to integrate, to go, oh, this feels like that. And really, you know, focus in, feel what it feels like.
Hmm. This is lots to digest and absorb, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And I'm finding this really fascinating, just the use cases. And I'm thinking of the clients that I've worked with in the past. And, we've generally recommended like mineral complexes to them, but none of
Mhm.
them contain humic or fulvic acid. They're all, kind of maybe rock based or ground up rocks as many minerals are. And of course that affects the absorption. So it's on the label, but it doesn't matter if it's on the label, it has to be inside the cell, which is
Exactly.
where the effect of it takes place.
Right.
Um, aside from obviously supplementing with minerals, are there particular foods that you recommend or suggest to people that are naturally high in minerals that are easy to absorb?
Well, of course, our leafy greens are really good. The challenge that I'm going to tell you is there's a study, it was done all the way back in 2014, I believe. And they studied foods grown in 1950, and they had some canned foods grown in 1999, and they did like a certificate of analysis, so how much mineral and nutritional content was in those foods. And they showed a huge depletion in minerals, vitamins, and protein content. So foods grown today, because the soils themselves are lacking minerals, the foods today are less nutrient dense. So although it's of course better if you eat organic and you're going to buy from a smaller farm, some region farmer, as opposed to just buying it at the big grocery store, most of us are doing that. And even if you're growing in your backyard garden, if you're continually growing year after year in the same soil without amending it with humic and fulvic, meaning minerals that the plants can actually access, then you're in the same boat.
Hmm.
So, really what I say is eating, that diverse diet is very good because, different plants have different concentrations of different minerals. So you really need all of them to get the full spectrum. But none of them are going to do well if you struggle with absorption issues, like your gut isn't healthy. So if you put fulvic in your system, now all of the nutrients from the foods you eat are going to be more bioavailable as well.
Hmm. One of the things, an avatar, a client, avatar that we work with is people who are struggling with metabolic health.
Mhm.
And, so that comes with low energy, perhaps hormonal imbalances, stubborn weight, and issues of that nature. And I can
Mhm.
see immediately how adding in some B minerals can be very helpful for them. I'm curious how, from your perspective, how minerals affect, obviously, we talked about how it affects mitochondrial function, but what would be some of the outward symptoms of somebody who's struggling with metabolic issues uh, that also has mineral deficiencies? Like, what would their outward symptoms be? Would it be food cravings? Would it be energy crashes? Like, what would those be?
Yeah, brain fog. So cognitive issues, having a hard time getting your thoughts together, making decisions, cramping, all cramping in the body, all cramping, whether it's menstrual cramps, a leg cramp, a heart attack. These are all mineral deficiency.
Hmm.
Recently, I talked to somebody who hiked the Grand Canyon, and he said he started with his fingers and his toes, and then it went to his whole foot and his whole hand, then his arms, and it was moving. And I said, yeah, that's the thing. It gets closer and closer to your heart.
Hmm. Wow.
Everything, it's going to say, okay, we're going to keep the heart pumping. All the minerals are going to go to the heart. So I said, yeah, that was a really dangerous. He's now going to carry our spray with him everywhere because it's a really quick infusion if you were having that without carrying a lot of extra weight. So, so metabolic health. The thing that I want people to know is brain fog, cramping, skin issues, hair falling out, menstruation issues, infertility, having a hard time getting pregnant because your body doesn't have enough energy to generate a uterine lining, um, just um, mouth problems, teeth, like if you're having bone loss or cavities, lots of problems with your mouth health, um, and of course all of your gut issues, and you know you have to remember that all of that gut microflora, that all those beneficial bacteria and fungi and et cetera that are in your gut, they all utilize minerals. So when
Hmm.
you're giving your body minerals, you're feeding your gut microbiome. Now, especially when you're doing it with the fulvic and humic that are so easily bioavailable. Um, the kinds of things that we have, the reports that we've had, of course, heard my own experience, but for people who have extreme metabolic issues, and with, maybe they've had their stomach stapled or they've had, all sorts of different weight issues. It's incredible. Um, so if you think about how you feel when you're hungry, you feel on edge, you feel tired, but also wired. So
Hmm.
your nervous system literally gets amped up while you're feeling tired because your nervous system is on hyper alert saying, we need something. So when you start to get mineral replenished, not only do you start having a clearing of the brain fog and less cramping and more these physical, your hair starts to grow, these kinds of physical symptoms, you also have neurological calming. People start sleeping through the night because their nervous system isn't on that hyper alert. So we've had people report, a woman, she had some trauma when she was a child. She used to keep the lights on in her house all night, every night. And she
Hmm.
called us, she was a friend of my partner's, and she said, you know, I suddenly realized I've been turning the lights off in my house at night. It's like, that's crazy. Suddenly she started going for walks. This is a very overweight woman who really struggled with getting up off the couch and going for a walk. And she ended up joining a gym.
Wow.
She said there's another woman who said she had quite a sugar addiction because it was all tied up with her sense of, pleasure and calming. And she was at a party and the pieces of cake went around and she passed hers on to the next person. She's like, I'm passing the cake?
Hmm.
Another woman who she's every single night, bowl of ice cream every single night. She suddenly realized she'd stopped going to get the ice cream. She just stopped. So what happens, a lot of times there's so much stuff around issues with weight and we have to turn over a new leaf and it's about discipline and what I want to say to people is what if that feeling that you're missing something that has you going to the fridge or looking for something, what if that actually is real and all you're missing is minerals?
Hmm.
That the stress that you're feeling in your life isn't coming from the outside, that a huge portion is coming literally from your mitochondria saying, we need more, we need more. It's like, mommy, 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 like that thing.
Yeah.
So rather than just, I mean, I actually want people to listen to that. Actually listen. You're actually right. You are missing something. But guess what? It's actually really simple. It's just minerals.
Yeah. And you may not find it in the grocery store necessarily, right? Especially in the ice cream section. However, it's something that you've conveniently put into a liquid for us that
Right.
has no taste. I'm
Yeah.
curious, can you add it to like your smoothie or do you have to drink it on its own?
You can drink it on its own if let's say you're fasting, you didn't want to have any caloric intake. You could do it totally on an empty stomach. You can add it to anything. The only thing you don't want to do is cook it. So you don't want to, boil it or put it in something you're going to cook, but you could put it in after you cooked it. People we have put it on their kids' food. They don't know. They put it in their kids' water bottle, all sorts of different things like that. So it's very, very easy. The liquids are very easy. I want to mention one other thing that's really cool. In nature, when the way that nature works is in what I call this sustainable loop. So plants grow in the soil, and the way they create all their structure is they pull minerals from the soil and they create structure. And whether it's a small pea shoot or a huge, redwood tree, it's all the structure is minerals. But in nature, that plant will die and then it decomposes and it gives its minerals back to the soil for the next plants the next spring.
Hmm.
But in what we've done is we've broken that chain. So we grow food, we harvest it, we take it away, we store it, we eat it, and we dispose of the waste far away from where it's grown. And so we've broken that chain.
Hmm.
The beautiful thing when you use humic and fulvic is you restore that chain because you're now reconnecting yourself to that sustainable loop because you're getting that fulvic and humic into you, which is what is needed at the cellular level. It's a really Humic and fulvic kind of, I say they represent stored energy, like
Hmm.
the energy of an entire rainforest, stored, ready for use by any cell that comes in contact with it.
Yeah, what's coming up for me is it's almost like a God molecule, right? That has this infinite intelligence woven into it and interacts with our body at a mitochondrial level to allow us to function properly. So we are just part of this one huge ecosystem. And we've, like you said, we've broken that cycle, and this helps us become part of that cycle again.
It's funny that you called it that because it's exactly what the scientists who are the people who know humic and fulvic the most, that's what they call it.
Oh, okay. Well, there
They
you
told
go.
me that.
It just downloaded it from the ether, right? They
Exactly.
call they
Not
call
surprised.
D they call DMT the God molecule, but this seems a lot more fitting. Yeah.
They're
Um,
probably connected somehow.
oh, I'm sure they are. DMT and minerals combined. I wonder what that would be like.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so I'm curious, like, there's a lot of different diets that are out there. One that's recently just, taken off for whatever reason is like a carnivore type of diet, you know, and I know
Yeah.
these minerals mainly come from, the humic and the fulvic. So I'm curious, a couple things. One is there's two trends that are going on right now. One is a high protein, maybe even to the extreme, a carnivore diet. And the
Mhm.
other one is people on Ozempic.
Mhm.
So they're eating way less, which means they're
Mhm.
probably demineralized even more. So it seems like naturally that would be an excellent solution for them to get their mineral levels back up.
Mhm.
And then people who are eating, maybe a more, carnivore type of diet, how does that affect their minerals, if at all?
Yeah. So, when you're doing a carnivore diet or even a very low carb diet, your body goes into ketosis. And there's different thoughts about, whether you should continually stay in that forever or not. I don't want to get into that argument or not. But when you do go in and out of ketosis, there's this period of time where people end up often feeling all sorts of different effects. So, first of all, so if let's say you're carb cycling, you're going in and out of ketosis, it's very important to take these full spectrum minerals during that period of time. Otherwise, you'll get flu symptoms, aching, headaches, all sorts of potential gut problems. But even more so, what happens is in ketosis, your body loses more water. It's a
Mm,
it's a it's a diuretic state. So you lose more water. And when you lose more water, you lose more minerals. So if you're already mineral depleted and now you're going to go into eating a low carb diet, you can go into even deeper depletion. And if you see people who are doing, very low carb diets and they have like dark circles and they have this kind of like, this look where they're like on edge. And really that's just a sign of mineral depletion. So it's very simple. You just use your humic and fulvic to up all the minerals, and then you don't get any flu symptoms. But particularly for people that are doing carnivore, I want to clarify because they're called plant-based minerals and they're not into any plants, they're always worried, like, well, I'm not taking those because they're plant-based. What I want you to understand is these are 65 million year old plants. Okay, so they have none of the, anti-nutrients or whatever you want to call those
the
things.
phytic acids and things
Yeah,
like
all the things that people don't want from plants. They have none of that. They're just minerals. And
that.
even
Okay.
people ask me, well, what kind of magnesium is in your product? I say, it's magnesium, like Mg. Think of the periodic table. That's how basic it is, which is really a cool aspect of it.
Yeah, because there's so many different forms of magnesium, right? There's like 7 or 8 different forms of magnesium that are out there.
Yeah,
And is that because they're trying to get into different parts of the body and different systems of the body versus if you just use straight up magnesium, magnesium is magnesium.
yeah. I mean, you're not going to find just magnesium out there because they're all ionic minerals. So they're all bound with different other molecules. The magnesium In this is it's organic magnesium bound to a carbon molecule. It's at its most base form, ready to be
Mm.
magnesium citrate or magnesium, whatever it is, any other form that you want, that your body needs. So this is why I say use the most basic minerals in your body, and it's incredible. Infinite wisdom goes, oh, we need magnesium citrate over here. Oh, we need magnesium stearate over here. We need whatever. And it does the ionization right inside your gut, right inside your bloodstream.
Hmm. So it's
Yeah,
almost like a little pharmacy inside of you, building the right form of nutrient that you need for it to be absorbed in the appropriate place.
exactly. The body and all ecosystems are, I mean, I always, if you think about ecosystems, if you've ever seen an ecosystem that's been destroyed and then
Mm.
it comes back over years, it might take years, and it comes back and it's just as strong as it was, you know?
I
So
love that. I mean, there's so many questions I could ask. Are there any questions that I haven't asked you that you wish I did or you wish more people would ask you?
that's a great question. I think the main thing that I want people to get is that their body is an ecosystem. It's just like all natural ecosystems on Earth. All cells on Earth work basically the same way when it gets down to the mitochondrial level. And you need to get minerals into your mouth, all the way into your gut, all the way into your bloodstream and into your inside the cell. So just use what Mother Nature created to do that.
Mm.
It's so simple. It can be so simple to feel better. Like, imagine that. If I had only known, if I had only known when I was a kid and so mineral depleted and so in such ill health, how much it could have helped me.
Mm. Now, there's minerals and there's vitamins, right,
Hmm.
that are essential.
Yeah.
Um, in what form do you take your vitamins? Is there something equivalent to humic and fulvic acid in the vitamin world, or is that exclusive to the mineral world?
There isn't real, I mean, there's of course everyone, I try to stay out of the vitamin conversation purposely because it can get very complex. I mean, we could talk about what I take and that kind of thing, but um, what I want to tell people is those vitamins do not work in your system without minerals
Mm.
because every single biosynthesis process in your body requires minerals. So take a ton of vitamin D. If you don't get minerals in your system, that vitamin D is not going to be able to do its job. Do you see?
Right.
So yeah, it's like it's the first thing you do. Everything else after that is going to be working in synergy with the minerals. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, this has been very enlightening, and I'm feeling recharged from our conversation and super excited to remineralize my body with the strategy that you've shared, which is so simple, right? Take this take this product, drink it, add it to your water, sip it throughout the day. I feel like it's going to make my sauna sessions and workouts and everything even better. I do
Mhm.
struggle a little bit with cravings at times, so I have a feeling that this is going to help with that. Will it make my hair turn black again? Does graying of the hair have anything to do with minerals?
Well, I've had people tell me that, and they literally sent me a photograph of their hair growing in dark. So I have no idea, but I can't tell you your hair is going to grow dark again.
No
Ev-
promises, but we're gonna find out, right? We're gonna find out.
everyone is different. People always say, "What am I going to feel?" I say, "Pay attention, and you'll see." Yeah,
Hmm.
so many different things because it runs every system in your body. Yeah.
Yeah. One last question for you that's coming up for me. Is there anything that people are doing that's depleting their minerals? I know we're not getting enough or we're not getting the right form, but are there specific things that people can do to stop depleting so many minerals from their body?
Yeah. You know what the key is? Drinking too much filtered water. So if you're drinking empty water, water that's, reverse osmosis or what's the
Distilled,
other word I can? Yeah,
distilled.
distilled,
Yeah.
right. You're drinking water that is empty of minerals. That water is now you're just irrigating rather than hydrating. So that water goes straight through you It doesn't have any, I mean, a small amount of it gets absorbed, but it's mostly going straight through you. And when it goes straight through you, it's taking more minerals out of your system. Okay.
Mm,
So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, and oh, I'm sorry. And the solution for that is every time you fill up your glass of water or you buy a water bottle, just pour a little Fulvic in there. It will immediately get mixed in with that water, and now your water is going to be mineral rich, and now it's going to actually get absorbed into your system. Okay. The other one is just trying to stay away from glyphosate. So really
mm,
eating organic and not eating things like non-organic or oats, and looking for non-genetically modified foods. Very, very, very important for gut health and because the ways that glyphosate kills weeds is by taking minerals, particularly copper, iron, from your system.
mm. I just tested a couple. I'm working with them right now. On their health, but their primary goal is fertility,
Mm,
and they came back off the charts with toxicity.
mm, mhm.
And they just moved into a new house, and so new carpeting, new furniture, like everything's new, and I could see it like in their lab work. It was
Mhm.
it was insane.
Mhm.
And so we're going to use these products with them to restore function, pull out the toxins, get their bodies functioning the way they should so they can build a healthy baby, not just have a baby, but build a healthy one. So this is very timely for me clinically. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to see, how this can help them. And it's so simple too, right? Like a lot of times, it's easy as a functional medicine practitioner to get carried away and give people all these supplements and nutrients and things like that that may or may not be doing what the intended desired outcome is. But something like this where we're working with the wisdom of ecosystems and nature, I think is going to be really powerful, and they're going to appreciate that too, not having to take a bunch of capsules or pills, and just drinking their minerals.
Yeah. And then all the other protocols that you do with them are going to be much more effective. That's the thing. Practitioners who have worked with us for a long time, they basically say when their clients come to them, the first thing they do is give them the minerals before they do anything else. And they say, take these for 2, 3 weeks, then we'll talk.
Mm.
A great way to get started.
Amazing, amazing. Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much. This has been super enlightening for me personally and professionally, and I know our audience is going to get a ton has gotten a ton of value if they're listening up to this point. We'll be sure to share some links where people can buy the products and learn more and experience the benefits for themselves. So thank you once again for your time, your energy, and really pouring so much love into this amazing product that you've developed. I know it's taken many years for it to get to where it is, and you're helping thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So congratulations on that. And again, appreciate your time today.
Sachin, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.